There we go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
There you go. We're at that age now where we have to like make noises.
yeah, make noises when we sit down.
Every time we stand up and sit down, you have to make sort of like we have to announce it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the perfect way, to feel yourself. You have enriched that age.
Yeah, it's very cathartic. That noise, it's necessary.
Actually, today I was giving, the class,
Mm-hmm.
and I would just, I was sitting,
Mm-hmm.
and I near the blackboard, and I would take the leap, and I was standing up, and I was like, and they were like, well, there comes an age, and I was like, I know it. You don't have to say it, right? Like, I know my age.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the perfect thing.
Comes an age in a man's life where your knees start making noises, and you have to
Exactly.
There we go. All right. So how's the you've chosen? I've given you like the Vermont maple blend. Yeah. How do you find it?
Oh, well, at least not. It's still not burning. It smells delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot wait how it will taste.
This is a very dry blend. So you got your matches there.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's do this.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So to light it, you remember you have to do a circular motion.
Circular motion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good.
You're always
It was
naturally going to need 2 matches at least
Yeah.
to get started.
I guess I will maybe need more, but
I usually tamp between the first and the second match, like this, because it rises a little bit, the tobacco, when you light it the first time. Mm-hmm.
first impressions taste good, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it gives the maple sound, or the maple taste. So
Yep.
perfect.
There you go.
When did you start smoking pipes?
My father was a pipe smoker, and he used to fascinate me. But I didn't really pick it up until I was in my sort of like my late 20s,
Interesting.
and because I never liked cigarettes, and both my mother and my sister were cigarette smokers, and so I never really got into that. I think one of my distinct memories I have of cigarettes is my sister picked it up when she was in secondary school.
Whoa.
She picked up cigarette smoking in secondary school, and she used to, when I was a little kid, she used to have to walk me home from school. Our mother forced her to make us walk home from school, basically. And she had the only set of keys into the house, and it was middle of winter, and she wouldn't let me go inside because she wanted me to keep her company while she smoked her cigarette butt.
Yeah.
She'd stolen out of my mother's ashtray, and she smoked butt. She didn't smoke cigarettes. She smoked the butts of my mother from
The
my
butts, yeah, the leftovers, yeah.
from my mother's ashtray. She was smoking a cigarette butt, and I was just angry. I just wanted to get inside the damn house. And eventually, it was aspiration. I was just like sort of smacking it out of her hand, and it went spinning off the balcony into the darkness. And she let out this scream, like no, like her baby had just been murdered in front of her. And I remember seeing that, just kind of, I never want to smoke cigarettes. I've never liked, I never want to be that dependent on any of my vices. And but I was always attracted to pipe smoking because a lot of my heroes, a lot of the people I admire, a lot of my favorite authors were pipe smokers, like C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, who we're going to talk about later.
Exactly.
P.G. Wodehouse,
Yes.
for example. A lot of people I really admired and respected were pipe smokers. Albert Einstein was another one. And I always felt like there was a huge difference between smoking a pipe and cigarette smoking. I do think there's a world of difference between it. I do think, I think cigarette smoking is more of a habit, whereas I would liken cigar smoking and pipe smoking more to like a hobby, like something that has a meditative quality to it almost. And there's less of an urgency, I find, or at least in my case, to where I feel like I have to participate in it every day. I have days where I go without. I have days where I don't do it. On smoking days, I usually just have like one or two in the evening, for example, or on Sundays I'll have one after breakfast. But it's not really, for me, it's not really I don't feel like it's something that I'm addicted to, if that makes sense. I feel
But it is something that you enjoy.
I mean, it's definitely habit forming. It's definitely habit forming because
Yes.
it's something that you enjoy, and it's something that I do recreationally, basically. But I consider it more of an art form in many ways. More of an art form more than a
It does
habit.
takes its time, so that I can understand, because you cannot smoke this when you're in a hurry. So whenever you are like, for example, I am not that pipe smoker as you are. Like, I tried it when I was young, and now I'm just tasting it again. I really enjoy it. When I have seen it, it's like you do it very methodically.
Yeah.
So that's that's one of the things that I really like to take these things that you can enjoy in life and that actually makes you have a time for yourself.
Yeah, well, it forces you to stop, and I mean, again, it's like a way of taking yourself out of the chaos of our the frenetic chaos of our daily life.
Exactly.
Basically, because life has become very fast paced, and everything that we consume and everything that we do and is very fast paced. And I think pipe smoking and other activities like it are a way of slowing down and taking a moment to just sort of like appreciate the moment, I suppose. Yeah. So I think that's why I like it, I guess, because it's got a very meditative quality. And again, it's not something with cigarettes. The point of cigarettes is that again, like we were talking about earlier, the point of cigarettes is that they're something that you can. It's a quick nicotine hit.
It's a quick nicotine hit
that you can get in your 10-minute lunch break at work.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why cigarettes ended up dominating the tobacco market, and cigars and pipe smoking kind of became less popular because they required sitting down and taking a moment for yourself, and that's now something that's quite rare in our society.
Yeah. Actually, that's quite rare. Like, the more fast you are, the more successful you are. The more you don't have time for yourself, the more successful you are.
Yeah.
But if you compare, like, when you have time for yourself and you can enjoy things, then it is a long talk about not being successful, not making enough profit, not being useful, when the best things of life are not useful. The things that we enjoy the most are the things that we don't do them for the profit. For example, if you like to write, maybe one day you will get a profit from it, but you enjoy the process. If not, then it is very hard to write.
Yeah.
You just better use ChatGPT or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I agreed totally, and it's so yeah, I think we've lost that sort of ability to kind of like slow down and take it easy and just sort of like think. Basically, I mean, that's why I think the yoga industry has exploded, because it's an activity that requires reflection and meditation, and that's something that we've forgotten how to do. We used to do it just by for example being around nature, going for a long walk, for example, or doing activities like this. But now people don't have time to do any of those things, and so now I think that's why there's the wellness industry and the yoga industry has exploded, because it's
for something that had to come naturally, like. We don't have time for our friends, but we're chatting all the day. And that's the rush. Like, we like people to answer in WhatsApp frequently, fast. But we don't have time to see our friends, but we want them to be available.
Yeah.
So where is the connection, and how is the likeness of people being available all the time, but not having time to see each other?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why I got into pipe smoking, because I think it suits my personality very well, as someone who is very much against kind of like modernity. I would be the first to admit that I'm a Luddite, basically, as someone who kind of like is against technological and industrial advancement, especially at the expense of nature, which was something that J.R.R. Tolkien was opposed to as well, which is discussed in a lot of his books, particularly the Lord of the Rings series.
So you would see him as the first hippie.
He was, yeah, he was. I mean, he was a huge. It's weird because he had a huge counterculture following from hippies. Like I remember telling you that he was, Led Zeppelin were a huge fan of his, for example, and they even included in some of their songs like "Ramble On." They
Ramble On.
made references to his books. So he had a huge counterculture following because he kind of talked about, again, the preservation of nature and the rejection of the pursuit of wealth as a source of happiness and a source of self-fulfillment. And he talked more about kind of like, preserving nature and being among nature and learning to kind of like enjoy the simple things in life, like cheer and song and good company, which is more important. So that's kind of like something that I took a lot from those books.
And I started reading Tolkien just recently. I read The Hobbit, as we have been talking about. But one of the things I really enjoy is like, even the first part, like the first chapter, it starts when they gather on, and they just reaching Bilbo's house, and they are eating his food, drinking his ale, and so on. And actually, even he's frustrated because he has to serve a lot of things. He's enjoying that. He enjoys company. He enjoys the cheer, the song, the food, being around people, and that's something very hard. Like, in our mentality today, we will be like, why would I accept people coming into my house and drinking my food and, eating my food and drinking my ale and, making all this mess without invitation and so on. And it is like he started just enjoying it to the point where they even got very late and he even sleeps enjoying listening to the dwarves singing and how they are singing about these folkloric themes and so on. So that is very nice. Like I really like that topic because whenever we have this idea that things have to be, very self-centered, just successful and so on, we forget that the things that we enjoy and the things that they are selling us now,
right? Yeah,
should be the most natural things in the world, right?
Yeah. They're selling us things which we should be getting for free, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the next thing they are going to sell us is the fucking air, right?
I wouldn't be surprised if that's like the next, that they start to privatize oxygen and water.
And water.
Yeah.
Well, water is already going that way.
It's already in that direction, like, yeah.
Yeah.
And in Mexico especially, like kind of like where,
yeah,
you have to buy filters to make tap water drinkable, or just buy large garrafones of water every week. But yes, it's definitely, yeah. So yeah, I think that's why it was very appealing to hippies. I think it's also why it's very appealing to people like me who are very, who are, again, people who like to be outside of society, quote unquote.
Well, you live in the forest.
Outside of civilization. I like to live in them. Yeah, so I think that appealed to me, that kind of like that sort of slow style of living, kind of like what you see in kind of like places like rural Italy and other parts of the Mediterranean where, people, live simple lives where they drink wine every day. They eat well. They've never heard of, it would never occur to them to cut out saturated fat or, oils from their diet, but they all lived like longer than people over here. I mean, we're living in a time of paradox, basically. We're living in a time of paradox. We've never been more obsessed with physical health and diet. We've never had more diets. And,
yes.
The health industry is making millions right now, but we've never been more physically unhealthy.
Exactly.
We've never been more physically unhealthy. We've never been more obsessed with wellness and mental health and therapy and talking, and we've never been more depressed.
And I see, for example, past generations mentally even stronger. Although, of course, they have the problems and they have the things. Indeed. But even now, from statistics, like we were talking some moments ago, people are having more mental problems. People are getting more depressed, and things seem to be better, materially better, now than before. But they don't seem to get better socially.
Yeah.
And that's very problematic. Like, I remember, for example, when I go to the little town of my grandparents, they know everyone. They say hi to everyone. They speak with a lot of their community. They are not worried about notifications, likes on Instagram or, social media.
Yeah.
Of course not. And still, they have a recognition within their society. and people do care about them. They have their place, they have their role. They produce cheese, so they have a craft. Like they have something to do, and that's something I really like about Tolkien. Like even when he speaks about the dwarves, he recognizes that they were good craftsmen. They would produce good things, like iron and do metal things, and they would produce good things. So he's recognizing, even within each society, that they were recognized within their society and they have something to do. Like they were good at something, producing something with their own hands, and they could engage within that trade. Like they were having trade between men and dwarves, between elves and dwarves, and so on. And that seems like a very good thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nowadays it's like everything is produced by very small companies. Well, very huge companies, but very small amount of companies.
That's a very small number of them.
Exactly.
There's a monopoly on a lot of.
A monopoly.
Yeah. And that's a good point with the crafting things, like doing things with your hands, because I think it was like, again, you and I both work in academia.
Yes.
And we both work in academia, and I think there's a thing where we both have very physical hobbies, for example. So like, for example, I like my carpentry, and I like carpentry, and I like painting, and I like carving, and I like whittling and such. And you like to do, for example, your with your sort of your side business, making
sausages,
making the sausages on the side. So we both do things with our hands in our free time, and I think it's because humans have this need, this genuine need to do things with their hands. Our hands are a miracle of evolution. It's what put us above our other simian relatives.
Precisely.
Is that we're able to kind of and
we have opposite thumbs, right?
Opposable thumbs, yeah. So we're creatures who've evolved to do things and create things and build things, and we don't do that anymore. Most people today, I mean, we have this miracle of evolution, and we most of the time we just use it to doom scroll on Instagram and masturbate. That's all we use it for, basically. And I think that's equating to the cause of some of the reasons why a lot of us are becoming depressed, because we're not. I don't think people are depressed because they hate themselves. They're depressed because they don't do anything to improve their lives.
And to do something in this society is very hard.
Just to do anything, yeah.
Like for example, you do craft with wood, and people prefer to buy a terrible piece of wood, or not even wood, from IKEA, with very irregular design.
Yeah.
And they don't appreciate even more the art and the design and the crafts and how the things are done.
Yeah.
So even if you want to become a good craftsman, you have to struggle with a society that prefer cheap, quick, things that they can just throw away and buy another ones in maybe 5 years.
Right.
So that is making it very hard for even young people or people to, to have a life within their crafts and to do things with their hands.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think the point you made there about just buying things just very quickly. I mean, again, in the past, if you bought, for example, a wardrobe for your house, I mean, you would spend a lot of money on it, but the idea was that wardrobe was going to last for the rest of your goddamn life.
The rest of your goddamn life.
Yeah. But I like, I think when it comes to working with wood, I mean, I made this table, for example.
Sturdy.
It's probably one of my better pieces, which is why it's in the center of the living room. So I do carpentry. I make frames for my friend, who paid me by buying me whittling equipment, and it's incredibly satisfying. I love being a teacher. I love being a university lecturer, but in my free time, I have to do something with my hands because I feel like that's a human need that a lot of us are neglecting. And it's something that genuinely makes you proud of yourself, and gives you gives you a sense of satisfaction that I don't think you can get from being online all the time. I mean, I suppose the reason why, for example, things like cell phone games, for example, are so popular, is because they emulate that sense of achievement, which humans desperately crave, but is much more difficult to attain in real life. you get that sense of achievement in real life from like, I don't know, like, you know, exercising, or from finishing a project, or
Exactly. For example, when you give a perfect class, like that class that you remember that this was perfect and you feel perfect throughout the day, that doesn't come each and every class. It takes time. And for example, I remember when I was starting giving classes, I was very young. I was like 24 years old when I started giving classes.
yeah,
And I remember that for me it was very hard. So I was always, dreaming about this perfect class. And it was, like very recently, maybe until my 30s, that I really felt, the comfort, the stability to give the best classes I could give. But it took quite a lot of time, a lot of, patience of people, not paying attention,
Yeah.
to say, I really want this, I really like this, and so on, and to endure everything. And we have lost that. We want everything fast.
yeah. We want it fast, but when you want things quickly, it compromises quality,
Yes.
and that's one of the problems, basically. Like, again, like the example you gave of furniture, that furniture is going to start falling apart in like a few years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was cheap.
It was cheap.
It's cheap, and you had it delivered right to your house.
Right to your house, and you can build it yourself, right?
You can put it yourself. You don't have to like learn how to do woodworking to build it yourself. You just follow the instructions.
Yeah, very easy in the, to put it together, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing also with books, and that's the thing why I like this idea of speaking also about this very nice author of Tolkien, because he has this, like, he took his time for writing. When I started reading The Hobbit, you could see that it is not that he rushes. He takes his time. He makes you, all this travesty, like all this development, all this adventure going on. That to the point when I finished, all that I could feel was happy, sad, angry, all these emotions, coming together. Because, and the reason I say this, because I was having all these ideas, all these images coming to my mind, and for me it was like, come on, I just remember young Bilbo. Well, it's not that it was a jeer, right? Like, but I said young Bilbo because he changed a lot throughout the story, and now he's different. But I remember, like all these things happening, how Thorin was, starting to even care for him, recognize him, and say like, you are part of us, and he is starting to appreciate him. And how it finishes, like it is, like when I finished it, it was like heartbreaking. I was devastated. I even, like, I am not joking. I even started crying. I was like, this is the perfect ending, but it is not like the happy ending. Like, for me, it was like, I felt this loneliness, but still it was good that it ended that way. But it was, like a lot of feelings. And that's the thing with the book. Like, it is not like a movie that you watch in the evening and you finish. You read the book, you analyze it, you think about it. And the best thing, even if you are lucky, you can speak about it with friends, or even if you are very, very lucky, you can speak about it with students. And that's, like the cherish, like that's the goal. Like, and if they read it and you can really, exploit everything, every single word and scene of the book with a group, that has happened to me not so many times. Not so many times.
It's really, it is a wonderful experience when you get to witness your students kind of like experience a book that you're very familiar with for the first time and see their own reactions to. Like right now, for example, we're in my own group, we're reading The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith, and it's really interesting to see how they kind of like respond to the events of the book and the plot twists and the character, the titular character. And how, that you find yourself simultaneously despising but also rooting for him at the same time. So yeah, I totally get what you mean. And what it means to like be able to explore a narrative with your students. And I've seen, with a couple of my younger students, we've looked at The Hobbit a couple of times just because I think it's a short book with a very poignant message about life and about the pursuit of friendships and relationships and comfort and nature and and contentment over the pursuit of material wealth as a life goal, which I think again is a lie that we've sort of been sold by civilization, quote unquote. Yeah, which in order for us to in order for us to achieve happiness, it has to be done through our careers and through we have to dedicate our lives to working at some email job that's never going to thank us in the long term, and dedicating our youth and the best hours of our days to doing that, and only by doing that can we be self-actualized human beings.
Exactly.
And and there are people who sacrifice time with family and time with friends because they're prioritizing their jobs and their projects. And it's become worse actually in the last few decades, because in the past you would leave the office and then you'd leave the office on a Friday night,
and that was it.
And you wouldn't really, that was it. And then you wouldn't really, if there was a problem, you wouldn't hear about it until Monday morning. And now you leave your office, and your boss can message you, can send you a text or an email over the weekend, or in your late at night, and it's like you're never
never off.
You're never entirely away from your job, if that makes sense. And the line becomes even more blurred when you're working from home.
That's the thing. And whenever we ask the question, who are you? People say, I'm a lawyer. But that's what you do, but not precisely what you are.
Yeah.
For example, it's a different thing to say that I have a passion about justice, and that's different than just being a lawyer. I have a passion about education. That's different than just being a teacher. But that means I question every day what's the best way to educate people, and to give them, just enough amount of tools, but not to cripple their ability to develop their own.
Right.
And that's one of the things I really like about this passage we have talked about Tolkien in The Hobbit, and about Gandalf. I really like Gandalf because of that. He's really is a wizard, but he really is wise, because he's joining them in their adventure throughout all of the journey, and he's helping, and he's giving comfort, he's giving advice and whatnot. But then comes a time when he sees that they can do it by themselves, and that is a value. Of course, it is a Christian value called subsidiary. When you do not have to do things for other people, if you know that person or that those people can do it for themselves, because then you are crippling them. So Gandalf says, all right, I have come through all this, and I have aided you and so on, whatnot, and now it's time for you to go, because I have to be somewhere else. And he's like, I have to be somewhere else, and this is your adventure, for God's sake. And he wants to leave, but still he's concerned. And that's something that happens to me even as a teacher. I know I have to leave them, but then you're worrying all the time. Am I giving enough? Do I have to be there? Do I have to, tell every specific detail of the book? But there is a time when you have to trust.
Yeah.
You cannot say everything. You have to trust that they have to make their own mistakes, take their own adventures, and for Gandalf, and for Christ's sake, it is your own reading of the book, right? You cannot just explain and give them all the story. They have to enjoy them, feel it. You just aid, you just guide, you just there, like Gandalf, guiding all the way. But when it comes for them to have their own adventure, to have their own reading, then it's the point that you have to just step aside.
Yeah, well, you can't be holding their hand the whole time.
Exactly.
Basically. And that's again, we could have an entire another session just talking about the problems of modern education and how it sort of infantilizes university students and basically treats them like incapable of regulating their emotional responses, incapable of thinking independently, incapable of handling intellectual diversity. And that's a huge problem in academia right now, where we're basically sort of treating young adults as if they're these delicate creatures that can't handle any kind of adversity whatsoever, which is necessary for university to have any value whatsoever, is that it has to be challenging. You know, it needs to be challenging. It needs to be at times stressful in order for it to kind of, for it to be a valuable experience that you actually learn from. You know, it's unpleasant, but sometimes that stress is necessary. That, you know, that academic anxiety is necessary sometimes, I believe. You know, and it's the same thing where, like, sometimes I'll be working with young people who, they don't know how to read. They don't know how to read. They don't know how to like read for homework. Well, that's Bodolf. He can hear us talking, and he wants to.
He wants to join.
He wants to join in the conversation. But yeah, no, it's an interesting thing you mentioned about kind of like Gandalf sort of being sort of like the teacher, the educator. He's the person who's guiding them on their journey, and at some point he has to be like, you know, Bilbo, this is your adventure, not mine. You're the one who has to learn from this experience.
Exactly, and he actually does learn from the experience.
He does, yeah. He learns to be more open-minded, and he learns to be kind of like, because Bilbo has his own sort of prejudices, and
he didn't want to get out of his place because he was like, I'm very late, and then he was like, how can I get out without my handkerchief? You know, like. Yeah. Of all the things that he could...
I don't have any handkerchiefs, and, you know...
Yeah.
When do we get to eat again?
Exactly.
Because hobbits are used to eating, like...
3 times morning, 2 times...
they have, like, 6 or 7 meals a day, and then dwarves are a bit more pragmatic, and I was like, we'll eat when we have time to stop.
Exactly.
And I'm going to let Bodolf in.
Yeah, I'll let him.
He's going to be complaining the entire...
He's a good dog, come on.
Yeah. All right. Here he comes.
Here he comes.
I'm going to... Súbete. Ben.
Yeah, he's going to the bed.
He's excited now. Ben. Good lad. Good lad. So he's all excitable now. Because there are guests. And I'm going to turn on the fireplace as well.
Yes.
There we go. So this is a very kind of... So yeah, I've been very heavily influenced by by those books and by Tolkien's philosophy. And I don't always feel like Tolkien practiced what he preached, because he lived a very sort of like, you know, a very kind of like a comfortable sort of middle class life. But
yes.
He cared about nature. He liked living in the countryside. He was very much against industrialization at the expense of nature. I kind of sort of tried to sort of emulate that kind of lifestyle, basically, which is why I ended up sort of, you know, towards the end of my quarter life crisis, where I was feeling despondent and depressed because I didn't have I felt like I should already like own like a large apartment in the city and have like a car and all that stuff. I eventually kind of like came to the conclusion: do I actually want that stuff? Is that actually part of my goal in life, or am I simply pursuing that thing because those goals because I've been told that's what I should want, basically? And that was the problem. I eventually came to the realization, actually I think what I really want is just like a small cabin in the woods, and as long as I've got food in my fridge and my rent is paid, and I'm happy, basically. I don't really feel like I need anything else other than that. And I enjoy living a life of frugality among nature. And I've learned to really appreciate things like just going for a hike every morning with Bodolf for like 1 hour or 2 hours if I'm lucky. And so that's kind of like what I want in life. So in many ways I try to emulate the Hobbit lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah, which I feel like, yeah.
No, but that is great, because I have had the same thing, like how much I like the most of the pressure, or the more pressure I feel is like more because of what I think are the expectations of other people. Mm-hmm. But I really don't know what other people want.
Yeah, of course.
And precisely, like if they want something, it is from themselves. Mm-hmm. But the least thing we ask is, what do we want for ourselves? Mm-hmm. And that's the most difficult thing, because who are we? And when you can answer who are you, then you are more in touch with what you want.
Acquestate, Bodolf.
Sit. Ahí está.
Oh, he likes you.
Yeah, he
likes Uncle Sylvie.
Yeah. Bodolf. Not in the mouth, Bodolf.
Don't kiss him on the mouth, Bodolf. Jesus, you use that thing as toilet paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good boy. Yes, but that's a very nice thing about books and about these things, because they make you really question who are you and what you really want in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the big disparity between Bilbo and Thorin, because Thorin, he's pursuing. I mean,
Yes.
he has his pursuit is noble because he's trying to reclaim his home
Yes.
for both himself and his kinsmen
Exactly.
that was stolen from him by Smaug, the
dragon.
The dragon. But also, I mean, it's like again, he's also pursuing wealth. He's pursuing to reclaim, his father's treasure. And whereas Bilbo, he's not really motivated by the gold. He's not really motivated by treasure. And even at the end of the book, where even though he's owed 14%, like a 14th share, 14% of the treasure, he only takes like a small chest because he doesn't feel like he needs or wants it anymore. His goal was not to become rich.
Actually, he's very humble, because he even says that he's willing to give his share to avoid the conflict between men and dwarves and elves, and he's like, I can give that all. Like, if it helps to restore, I can give that all.
Yeah.
And that means that he was, like a person that cared more about people rather than, the material wealth indeed. And that speaks a lot about Hobbit society. Like, it is not that they were perfect.
No, because they had their flaws. They were very wary of outsiders. They could, they had their prejudices. They could be a little bit, I mean, Bilbo at the beginning of the book is quite narrow-minded.
Yeah.
And over the course of the story, he becomes more open-minded. He becomes more, he broadens his intellectual horizons a little bit. And
precisely.
And I think that's one of the ways in which he learns. But yeah, I mean, that was his thing. That was something that was characteristic of Bilbo, was that he wasn't interested in material wealth. He wasn't interested really that much in the gold. He was more in it because just for the adventure.
For the adventure.
There was a part of him that just craved getting away from his home and being able to see mountains for the first time in his life and Bodolf, ¿qué haces?
Bodolf is like, give me attention, please.
He loves you, yeah.
I am here, motherfucker.
He wants his attention. He wants his scratches. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants it.
He's been a very good boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really like, because other thing that I was very, like, it really took me, like, how the thing develops, because even Bilbo, like, he wants the adventure, and the adventure changes him. He was in this point when actually Gandalf leaves, and now they are all by themselves. And the dwarves, they all got caught by the spiders, they got captured. And there it comes a part when, this Bilbo, manages to kind of escape, and he realizes that a spider is just there, and he takes his sword and he actually gives the hits to the spider.
Yeah.
And he manages to take it. He takes the spider, he kills the spider, and there is this point when Bilbo is,
Bodolf, ven. ¿Qué haces? Ven aquí. Good boy.
It comes this point when he's amazed by himself, and he realizes that, and the point is that he can do things by himself. And it comes that I just killed a huge spider without the dwarves, without the wizard, without Gandalf. So that means that he started, trusting in himself. Yeah. Think that he wouldn't be able if he wasn't exposed to the risk, to the adventure.
That's a part of the book where he named his sword.
Exactly. Just after he kills the spider, he says, this sword now is Sting. Yeah. That's precisely the part. And how many times, like, I have seen it, like, I have had these students that actually write quite well. But you know that if you, at the beginning, tell them that you write quite well, you may be taking out, the pursuit of getting better.
Yeah.
So you just restrain yourself, like, all right, this is good, but this. And they start doing it better, to the point when they actually start enjoying it. And then when they start enjoying it, then It is when you can tell them like, all right, you write amazing lie. It's like
Yeah.
now you're in the point of view when you trust yourself. I can read it and I know that it is you writing, and then everything is flowing and it is going keep a continuum. So that is amazing. Yeah, like I really like this thing where people can start knowing themselves because they took the risk, not because someone else told them. So for me, this.
No, I mean, I think that's one of the. Again, I think that was Gandalf's point. Like, he felt like that Bilbo had become, he had this. Estoy aquí. I'm here. Yeah, good boy. He's a very good boy.
He's a very good boy.
Yeah. Yep. No me comes, por favor. Yeah. No, yeah, he's a good. No, it's a wonderful book. But yeah, I think that message of like the pursuit of different goals, and the pursuit of adventure for adventure's sake, and the future of the pursuit of perdóname. Like, stop talking and pay attention to me.
Pay attention
The
to me.
pursuit of adventure for adventure's sake, the pursuit of sort of like having experiences that help you grow as a person is considered a much more noble pursuit.
It's like, ha, ha.
Yeah, I want my scratches. Ben aquí. Good boy. So that's a much more noble pursuit than simply the pursuit of wealth. Yeah. And that's the one that we tend to be going for the latter rather than the former these days. Like most people, their goals are tied to, I want to be able to buy a house. And
Exactly.
buy a big house. And most people want to buy an obnoxiously large house. And I want to have I want to be able to afford to pay for this, and this. And I'm not saying that money doesn't buy happiness, because it does. I know what it's like to be. I'm not trying to espouse a luxury belief of someone who is now sort of comfortably middle class. I know what it's like to be as an immigrant in Mexico. I know what it's like to be as a visitor in this country. I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to struggle with poverty. And having to choose between having a varied diet and paying my rent on time.
Exactly.
So I know what it feels like. I know what poverty feels like, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I can't think of anyone I dislike enough that I would ever want them to have to endure that. So yes, money up to a point, I think, does buy happiness.
Yes.
But so at one point it plateaus, and it gets to a point where any additional wealth you accumulate after that is not going to make you happier necessarily. I mean, once you've met your basic needs, such as housing, food, comfort, money to put aside for savings and luxuries and your hobbies and stuff. Once you've met those parts of your life, those facets of your life that are necessary to be happy and comfortable, I think any additional wealth you accumulate after that, I think doesn't add to your happiness. And I think in some ways it can possibly hinder your perspective. Yes. And make you more kind of. I often use the example of Taylor Swift, for example. Who I remember telling you this example where Taylor Swift got into some trouble recently because she flies everywhere on a private.
In a private jet. Yes.
Everyone on a private jet. She needs to get some grapes from the supermarket. She jumps in a private jet. And she got into a lot of trouble with it. And she used her, I think if I recall correctly, she used her pretext. It was like, I need it for my safety and for my security and all that stuff. But for me, I feel like it's probably the first time when Taylor Swift first became really successful. And the first time she ever flew on a private jet, it was probably a huge luxury for her. It was a massive luxury, and probably it was just kind of she was being served martinis, and she was being treated like a princess, and she probably thought it was amazing. But by the 20th time, it wasn't a novelty anymore. That was just her normal day to day.
Exactly.
And it probably wasn't that probably the novelty had worn off, and that had just become part of her normal routine. But now, let's say hypothetically, she loses some of her. Let's say for a novelty she has some sort of financial problem, she makes a poor investment or whatever, and now she has to fly on, for example, first class on a commercial airline. For most people that's a huge extravagance. That's an enormous luxury.
Exactly.
For her, it would be a huge step down.
Exactly.
It would be a huge for her it would be that would be her lowest moment, that she has to share a plane with us lesser mortals. So that's what happens. You become, you get to a stage where you're able to afford luxuries, but then after a while, those luxuries, you become dependent on them, and they stop bringing you happiness. But but if they're taken away from you, they can cause enormous distress. So you become accustomed to your luxuries, and then as a result, they become burdens. Yeah. So your luxuries can sometimes become your burden if you get to So I do feel like the secret to happiness is learning to be content with simplicity, with simple things in life, and learning to appreciate simple things in life which don't necessarily cost money, if that makes sense. Don't necessarily require a great deal of wealth. Simply, just being able to spend time with. Again, Bilbo enjoyed company. He enjoyed friends. He enjoyed good food,
song,
music, good company. So that's what he appreciated in life, and that's the stuff that actually makes you happy in life. Yeah. And it's, we were talking about this earlier. That's kind of like, for men in particular, I think that's kind of like our therapy, basically. Because
there's no better therapy. Of course, we can go to therapy and whatnot, but one thing I have realized that we really need is to be among our friends, have a steak, have a grill, take some beers, take a pipe, have some dog, because we are very close.
Have dog as in for company, not on the grill, not
on the grill.
Not as food. Yeah,
I still haven't eaten dog. I wish, but we never know. but a good company, like a nice dog, because that makes us to take this share of part when we are close to the thing that we like to be. In the environment, in the nature and whatnot. And that comes to the other point. There is this thing about being in nature and being who we are that I have come to really enjoy when we speak about pipes and smoking and Tolkien and whatnot. And it's how much craft would
we had the same idea at the same time.
Yeah, how much craft and how much development of artisan you need to do this. For example, I don't even know how to make a pipe.
No,
not really. But I have, because I was watching some videos, and I have, heard that not one of them is exactly the same. They cannot be really, produced industrially.
No, that's the thing. They're all handmade, and they all have to be handmade, and they all have to be. I mean, again, it's like I have some idea of how they're made because I enjoy woodworking, but just with the bowl, for example. But again, it requires a level of skill and patience and precision that I can only really marvel at, I think. And I think smoking a pipe and smoking cigarettes are miles apart. They shouldn't even really be, put into the same category.
Exactly.
In my opinion, yeah.
They shouldn't be put in the same category, and you're actually doing very different things. Because this thing, we have been speaking by now, some time, and we still have, fuel to burn. And if it was cigarettes, we have already finished. And
we'd have finished, we would go on to our second one. We'd be,
and that's fucking it, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I've had a few friends who were, they were chain smokers, and I do feel like that, again, witnessing that sort of urgency they would sometimes have to have a cigarette. Like I had a friend once who was down on his luck and had to stay with me for a couple of days, and he ran out of cigarettes. He used to roll his own. He ran out. He didn't run out of cigarettes. He ran out of the paper that you use to roll the cigarettes. I think the Rizzlers, I think they're called.
Yeah.
But he ran out of the rolling paper for a cigarette, so he just started tearing pages out of his notebook to smoke his cigarette, because he was so desperate for a smoke and he couldn't afford to buy Rizzlers. That's what he would smoke. I can't imagine having that urgency to smoke so much that I end up sort of compromising the quality of my smoking experience just for the sake of smoking.
Just for the sake of smoking.
Just for the sake of smoking. I mean, again, there'll be periods where it's like, again, because it's become increasingly. I mean, the world has become, Western society it has become such a joyless place to live in, and it's become more and more difficult to enjoy pipe smoking or cigar smoking in public. It has to be is an activity that's now sort of regulated to very specific areas. So there'll be situations where I will forsake smoking because I'm not in an environment where I can do it comfortably.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you have to take that outside, sir, and it's raining, and I have to like sort of huddle underneath like a very and a very narrow kind of like sort of shelter sort of thing in order to smoke, get my pipe going. And it's like, no, I'd rather just wait until I get home.
Perfectly.
When I can actually enjoy the damn thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which one is your perfect design of a pipe, or because there are many types, which one you like the most?
I do like I like a pipe with a straight stem. I'm fond of billiard pipes as well. I quite like churchwarden pipes, which I have a couple of those. I like the churchwarden pipe because it's called the churchwarden, as I think I told you a couple of weeks ago, that it's called the churchwarden because originally they were the pipes designed for the people who used to guard churches. Guard churches at night. They used to guard the churches from people who might potentially try to sneak in and steal rob from the coffers. So obviously it wasn't expected that the guards should go an entire evening without a smoke, so they would be given a pipe. But the idea was that the length of the pipe, the length of the stem, was designed so that the smoke wouldn't get in their eyes.
This is getting in my eyes for sure.
Yeah, for example, like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a good design because with this pipe you actually get the smoke in your eyes, and so if it gets very into your eye, you cannot really see that well.
Yeah, so that was the plot. So they would be able to smoke, but it wouldn't compromise their ability to survey the landscape and see if there was anyone, spying on the church, possibly trying to sneak in and steal, steal something of value. So that's where the name comes from, and they're actually quite enjoyable pipes to smoke because of the length of the stem, it allows the smoke to cool. And so it reduces the likelihood of tongue bite, which is something that happens when you smoke your pipe too hot, and it results in the smoke becoming too hot and it sort of burning your tongue slightly, which obviously hinders your enjoyment of the
Yes, of course.
of the experience. So yeah, churchwarden pipes are a lot of fun. But I don't generally smoke them in public because they are very eccentric looking.
Yeah, I can see that. Like,
Yeah. So the one displayed on my wall, for example, I have. Should I bring it over?
yeah, please do.
So this one is actually use it solely for decorative purposes because it actually got damaged at one point. So it's usually solely for decorative purposes. But I have another one which is slightly smaller. Put that over here.
Yep.
And I've got another one over here, this is a good morning pipe as well because the bowl isn't too large, so it's good for a short smoke. And again, the length of the stem.
Yeah, very.
Yeah. So that's actually my Bilbo pipe. That's my Hobbit pipe.
Yeah, that's the Hobbit pipe.
Yeah, that's a pipe you often see. Often, even in the Peter Jackson movies, usually the hobbits are smoking quite small.
Yes.
Kind of like long-stemmed pipes with a small bowl, basically, to enjoy their pipe weed.
The way the wood feels here is really nice.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
And so that's my church. That's the smaller of my churchwardens. I've got quite a few. I do enjoy a curved stem, but I find them slightly more difficult to clean.
Yeah.
That's one of the issues. Straighter stems are easier to clean.
Just
even when you're smoking, and when it starts making that gurgling noise because of the accumulation of moisture, they're easier to clean while you don't necessarily have to wait for it to for the pipe to go out.
Yes.
Before you sort of deal with that sort of problem. So yeah, I enjoy pipe smoking. I enjoy cigar smoking to a lesser extent.
I'm going to put it.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry, it's sturdy. I do enjoy pipe smoking to a lesser extent. Cigar smoking to a lesser extent.
Cigar smoking. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think pipe smoking is just something that I think it's I think there's a reason why it's popular with academic types.
Yeah.
Such as Tolkien, because again, it's a very reflective activity. And it's something that pairs very well, for example, when reading a book or when having a conversation or when you simply want to sit in your favorite chair and just think for a while.
Yes.
And just reflect.
it doesn't end quickly. That's the thing I have
Yeah.
seen. Like you can be quite a long time, smoking,
Mm-hmm.
thinking and whatnot, and that's the thing I have come to really enjoy about it, because
Mm-hmm.
it does allows you to like not to rush.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very few activities we can do nowadays that doesn't require to be in a rush. You
Yeah.
drive, you are in a rush. You go to work, you're in a rush. And everything seems to be very, very fast. And there is no way that you can do, for example, or you can smoke a pipe without having a rush. Like even the part of, lining it, putting it down, and so on. And for me, it's like an artwork, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you put the tobacco in mine and so on, and it was like, well, how you do it using, like in the first time, and it was perfect. And for me, it was like I remember when I was smoking pipe, and for me it was very difficult because I would put it very very tight,
Mm-hmm.
and air was not flowing, and then I had to put it out again, and then I put it in.
Yeah, there's an art form. You put it in, you put the tobacco in first of all, and then you tamp it down either with your finger or with a pipe tool, and you do it very gently the first time, and then you put a little bit more in, and then again you tamp it down, but this time with a little bit more strength. And then the third and final time you put a bit more in and you tamp it down, but this time with much more strength, and then that creates sort of like that's how you get the perfect smoke. Yeah, but again, there's a process to it.
It is a process, and you have, like, there is no way of measuring it. It is a thing of experience that you know how to do it. It is not like you're going to measure until where I put, with my finger, until where to put more. You just learn how to feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something I do as like naturally now. It doesn't require any
No,
effort.
so you do it very fast, like, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you would have to choose a pleasure in life that you would say that it is the thing that gives you more pleasure. That you say, like, this is the thing that I like, because we tend to think that when I go to the beach or when I go to vacation to Europe or whatnot, those things are pleasurable, but they are not the things that give us more pleasure because we cannot enjoy them frequently.
Yeah.
And I have come, for example, with wine. I enjoy the wine that I can drink the most or I can drink frequently, because I have come to know that, or I can know that wine. I can know how to taste it. I know how to drink it. I know, the notes to expect or what to expect from it. And for me, for example, certain types of wine, maybe Spaniard wine or Spanish wine, has come to be very pleasurable because I can enjoy it frequently. And for me, for example, things that I enjoy very, very, very much, one is to play an instrument. It's a thing that I have come very, very, to be very fond of. Like, I can do it frequently. I know what sounds make my guitar when I exceed, when I play that in a certain way and whatnot. I like certain type of wine to drink it frequently. So that's the other thing I wanted to ask you. Like, what is one thing that you do enjoy, that you can do it frequently, and that is one thing that you can say that for me this is a pleasurable life. That's a nice life.
Right. So for me, it's probably the simplest pleasure you could possibly enjoy, and for me, it's hiking and walking. So you may know me. I'm famous. I'm infamous among my friend group and among people who meet me for my contempt for cars and the way in which we've structured our society, not for the convenience of people, not to accommodate human beings, but to make it more easier to travel around in a car, basically. So we've built a society that prioritizes cars over human beings in our plastic sort of grey, soulless society. So I despise cars, and if I can get to my destination by walking there, like my daily commute to the university involves a 40-minute ride on the bus, followed by a 1-hour walk to the school. So literally, I'll get on the bus, the only bus in the town that goes into the city. I'll be on there for 30 minutes, 40, depending on the traffic, and then I could, in lieu of taking a second bus, which would take me maybe 10 minutes, I prefer to walk for 1 hour. Because if I can get to my destination punctually on foot, that will always be my first choice, basically. And there are days, of course, when the traffic is so bad in the middle of Mexico City, especially on Picacho, on certain times of days, that I prefer to walk then I'm literally out walking traffic. I mean,
Exactly.
like I'll leave, I'll see the same bus like 2 or 3 times and outwalk it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an interest. So I like hiking every day, and especially with Bodolf, we'll go hiking for ideally 1 hour, 2 hours. Yeah, at least 1 hour is the minimum. 2 hours would be ideal. 3 or 4 hours for me, I'm in heaven. And I usually so I love hiking. I've gone hiking up to up to La Virgen in San Nicolas and Pico de Aguila, and so that's one of my favorite hobbies. Basically, is to go hiking.
And that is perfect.
Yeah.
That is perfect.
And
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like those pleasures, you don't have to pay for them.
They don't require. Yeah, they don't really require anything. I mean, I literally just used to just put on a pair of boots and I used to have a stick. Eventually, a friend bought me these fancy hiking poles.
Yeah, yeah.
The proper hiking poles, which I always felt like I ought to get, but always felt like an unnecessary expense. And I was like, well, I was able to get up with it using just like an old stick I found. So, yeah, no.
Have you used them already? Or?
I have, yeah. I've broken them in a couple of times. So.
And how are they? Like
they're pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, nice, nice,
Yeah.
nice.
But yeah, no, it's an interesting. Yeah, so for me, that it's a form of meditation. It's a form of first of all, foremost is obviously exercise. It's physical exercise. Yeah. My favorite time to do it is immediately after breakfast. One of my favorite. I think probably an ideal Sunday for me would be to wake up just as the sun is rising. Get a cold shower, have some black coffee while I listen to the radio or listen to a podcast. Have a big hearty breakfast of eggs and bacon and hash browns, and then go for me and Bodolf going for like a 2 or 3 or 4 hour hike up into the middle of the woods.
Nice.
And then coming back home and doing some writing, read a little bit, listen to some music, and for me that's all I really need. That's a perfect day for me. I don't really need anything else. And again, it's part of that sort of frugalistic mentality that I have, whereas like I prefer cooking at home than going to restaurants, for example.
I agree.
My ideal first date would be like a picnic in the woods. Although I would never suggest it because it's a kind of a weird first date for a lot of people. Also, because of the obvious physical threat to a woman, it's like, hey, do you want to like come with me to the middle of the woods? Nothing bad will happen. You can trust me. I have a mustache.
Well, if you take the beard from the down, you know, and just leave the mustache, then
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would prefer to have the mustache, but like every woman I've dated ends up telling me like, no, I prefer you when you have a full beard.
Yeah.
And I've just sort of grudgingly sort of accepted it as like,
I once left it, just the mustache, and they were all telling me like, it does look all right, but you look, like a pervert, and some of them were like, come on, it's just a bloody mustache.
You look, I prefer it because it's more like, I feel like it's more formal and it's more professional looking, but I've been told, they've fallen out of fashion and very few people can pull them off. I think even saw Henry Cavill once with a mustache.
Just once, yeah.
Just once, and I was just kind of like, he looks better without it.
Yeah.
He looks better. He's either a beard or nothing. Like,
Yeah. That's
so I was like, I do kind of get it, but so that's my thing. So it's a bit unusual for a lot of people because I wouldn't consider myself unambitious. If that makes sense. I don't consider myself to be unambitious. Because I do have a lot of ambitions in life, but none of them are attached to the accumulation of material wealth. They're all about things like self-growth and the completion of projects. For example, I'm working on my second book right now. I'm up to like sort of 93,000 words or something like that.
nice.
Which is really tiring. Because writing a book is really hard. Don't try it.
No, that doesn't seem like something you can do just because of...
You can't do it in like one day.
No.
It takes. I mean, I aim to do about 500 words a day. Which is about 2,500 words a week, 10,000 words a month, more or less. You might skip a couple of days.
like maybe 50 pages a month, more or less.
More or less, but it's also high fantasy, and that's another thing.
Yeah, because I read articles, and they are not that hard because you have a topic, you develop it, and you only have to make the arguments coherent, and then you publish it.
I mean, I can shit out an article in like one day.
Yes.
I usually write one article a week. I've got a series of articles I've written on various topics, basically under the moniker of, you know, why I live in the woods and avoid people. But with writing a novel is writing a novel, especially like a high fantasy novel, where you have to flesh out an entire
environment.
yeah, exactly. It's much more mentally demanding. But again, it's very few people become commercially or financially successful from writing.
Yeah.
But again, that's not really my goal for why I mean, the first book continues to get good reviews and it continues to sell relatively well, which is pretty good for a first book.
In the podcast, you know, we're going to put by Griff in the
Yeah.
in the image.
There you go.
Just this is the point by Griff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very bad at advertising myself, but yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
By Griff.
Buy my book. I need the money for drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, well, for pipes and alcohol, yeah.
There you go. And but yeah, the second book's nearly finished, and it's going to be a trilogy as well. So I've created a problem for myself where I could have just written one book, made it have like just an ending, but instead I dug myself into a hole, and now I have to finish this book and then another one after.
But that's a good question. Like,
Yeah.
did you felt it necessary? Like, was it the story that compels you that still needed to write more, or that it could give more of itself?
Well, my problem is concision has never been my strong point.
Ah.
I'm very bad at concision. So my idea originally was it was to be just one book, and then one very long book, and then I got to a point where it's just kind of like, actually, I kind of feel like, you know, there are 3 acts of this story, and I feel like each act deserves its own kind of like its own book. So that's kind of how it ended up coming about.
Nice.
Yeah, but I'm also one of those people where I'll be working on a project, like a book project, and then I'll already be thinking about the next one. So I'm already thinking about the book that comes after this one, which is going to be the legend. I'm working on the Legend of Griff Manslayer, and then the one after that's going to be the Legend of Griff Exeunt, which is basically like an old a Shakespearean stage direction, meaning they leave. And then I'm also thinking about the book that's going to come after that, which is linked to that trilogy, but is a separate story.
Nice. And with a different character.
With a different character,
Nice.
who appears in the trilogy, but just as a kind of like just as kind of like one of the supporting characters, shall we say, one of the antagonists, basically.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that is lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that I like a lot, because nowadays it's the thing that they say, like, you have to write a book, things you have to do in life, write a book, travel and so on. And people think that it is something easy, and no, I think that it is not. Like, you have to be able to recognize that it will take time. And time is the most valuable thing that we have. And I have read this book that is called Letters from a Young Poet, from Rilke, the poet. And he was writing to a young guy that wrote to him that he wanted to be a poet, to give him some advices. And Rilke answered, if you are not compelled to writing, if it doesn't, give you pleasure, even the most insignificant thing, not the common things in life, but
Right.
the most insignificant things, like, for example, smoking a pipe, watching an afternoon, seeing the flight of a butterfly, he says, then don't write, because then you will write terrible.
Okay.
Because you have to have this sensibility of enjoying the most simple things of life. Because everyone thinks they can write about love, he says. But love is something very common. Write about the things that are, not so magnificent, not so huge, but that everyone discusses, everyone gives away, and are the most really enjoyable things of life, like a butterfly flight, like, the sunrise and whatnot. And I was thinking of that, because everyone wants to write nowadays, and it is this, I am a writer and whatnot, and Instagram writers and whatnot. And I haven't seen stories. And nowadays, no one is creating stories. They're just writing because it is something that, you have to do. And that's something very problematic. Like, why would you have to do it? Like, you don't have to.
I think people like the idea of being a writer, or being. I mean, like, again, I think working in kind of like the industry the field that we work in, you'll often meet a lot of young people who will identify themselves as writers. They introduce themselves as writers at parties. But then if you actually ask them, well, what have you written? They'll say, oh, well, I haven't actually, committed my, I haven't actually written anything yet, or just like, but I've got it all in here, and one day I'm just going to do a bunch of ecstasy, and then I'm just going to Jack Kerouac that motherfucker. And I was like, no, that's not how it works, man. You've got to, it's something. It's a passion that you have to nurture in your free time, and ideally you should be doing it on a daily basis. If you truly want to be a writer, it's something you should be doing every day, or at least most days. And obviously we all have demanding lives, and it's not always possible to nurture your passions, to have time, to find time to nurture the things that you care about. But again, if something is important to you, then you try to make time, obviously. So I find that a lot. So I think people are very attracted to the result, being able to, I think people are attracted to the idea of being a writer, but they often never really go through with it because the result being, a finished book, and then having a book that you've finished writing and then also getting someone to publish it for you, it just seems so far away and seems like it requires so much work. But people don't realize that the process is the result, basically. That what you do, the result is, using your free time to build upon a creative passion, a creative hobby, doing that every day, basically. It's like, again, with any goal in life, it's like, a lot of people give up on a new exercise regime because, again, in the end result of losing weight and losing weight and getting to getting your body to look the way you want it to look and all that, it seems so far away. And again, it means that you have to do it for not just a few days, but for months and months and months before you finally get to the place where you want to get. Many people give up in the first week or the second week. Because again, they forget that the what is truly satisfying isn't the end result, but the process.
The process.
Yeah.
And you're speaking just like Cervantes. I love this because this Miguel Cervantes he would say the same. When Sancho told him, like, when are we going to get to our destination? When are we going to, to get to there? And Don Quixote really replies, like, haven't you learned, Sancho, that it is not about the inn or to the destination, it is about the way, the path. We enjoy the path.
It's not. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's a cliche. The idea of it's not the destination, but the journey. But it's a cliche for a reason.
But yes, exactly.
Yeah. I'm a man I love cliches. I think I live by cliches because I'm a very cliche person because I think cliches become cliches because they are founded in objective reality.
And and folklore reason. Yeah, I agree with that.
So the cliches don't just fall out of the sky. Like they're a result of something of objective truths that people have come to observe over time. So I like that. That's one of my favorite cliches. It's not the destination. It's the journey. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
I remember once I was playing my guitar and a friend told me that I would give my life to play the guitar like that. And I replied to him, well, I have given my life.
Yeah,
like that's the thing that. I cannot play like this because I haven't. I have given my life for this.
Yeah, you've dedicated hours of your
life. I could be masturbating, doing whatever.
Yeah.
But I was dedicating life to that.
Instead of watching pornography, you
said yes.
You went onto Google and said how to play the guitar.
Yeah. I was playing guitar. I was playing blues. I was playing this music, and that's the thing. Like, I would give my life. Yes, but that's so rhetoric. Like, the thing is that. It comes with a price. You actually do give your life because every act of every election you made in life, it's a rejection of something else. The fact that we are here speaking, we are rejecting doing whatever other thing we could have been doing with this time.
Yeah.
But every election comes with a price, and that is the life not lived when you choose something that you are never going to live because you choose that thing. And that's something we have to accept. And that thing I really enjoyed of what you said, that you enjoy about writing, because that's the thing, you are actually giving your life to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, the result is the fact that I'm doing something that is intellectually and creatively stimulating every day. Well, not every day, but I try to do it every day. I obviously have days where I have so many classes and I finish at 9 p.m. and that can sometimes make it difficult for me to. But again, most days of the week I find time to do at least a few hundred words or 1,000 words on a good day. Sometimes more on weekends where I'll go to like a, I don't know, go to like a. Sometimes I have to go to like a. In order for me to kind of like get into the writing mood, I have to put myself in a different environment because I associate my home as a place for relaxing and a place where I reward myself after a long day of productivity. So sometimes I have to go to a different space, like maybe like a coffee shop or somewhere and write there all day. Yeah, but you know, on days like that, I can probably put out like 3,000, 4,000 words and make a lot of progress.
Exponential growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually that's at the end of a week where I didn't have a lot of time. I didn't have time to write more than maybe a few hundred words every day because of my classes and my other commitments. But again, that's the result for me is, you know, the thing that gives me satisfaction is not necessarily completing the book, but the fact that I'm, you know, again, choosing to spend my free time nurturing a passion rather than, again, consuming something, creating something rather than consuming something, because we've become a culture that consumes rather than produces. You know, we're always we're always looking for something that we can consume to kind of give our empty lives a false sense of meaning, whether it's like content on social media or it's
watch a full series in Netflix and
binge watching the entire series. We're consuming things, but a lot of us have forgotten how to create things ourselves. We used to, I mean, culturally, we used to create things all the time.
Yeah.
You know, again, this is when jobs were more physically demanding and people had a trade. They didn't just have like a job where they went to every day and sent some emails. They didn't have jobs, they had trades.
Yeah.
A trade like you'd be a carpenter, or you'd be a miner, or you'd be a baker, or you'd be a butcher, or you'd be a farmer, a shepherd. A rancher, and these were trades.
Yes.
It wasn't just a job, a 9 to 5 that you grudgingly did so that you could, you know, afford to pay for your Netflix subscription and buy pizza. This was something that you dedicated your life to, and you became a master of it, you know. And we don't do that anymore. Very few people have trades. A lot of people these days, they just sort of have email jobs.
Exactly.
that they go to, and which they despise and which they resent, and where they do the bare minimum. And you know, you and I are very lucky that we work in professions where we're both very passionate about what we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I still see it as a trade, but the thing is that it has come out of a price that we actually enjoy it. We take it very seriously, and that's another thing. That the fact of taking it very seriously, it comes with a price that, you know, like, we are always, you know, wanting to achieve something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's lovely, but it also comes with, you know, like...
It comes with because it means that we put more effort into it than would be necessary to get away. Like, we could probably get away with doing less.
Exactly.
There are a lot of people who are teachers who do the bare minimum.
We could do like half the things we are doing now in our classes. Like, I already know it. Like, like, I know I would be like regular evaluation and so on, and I could give just the enough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, hopefully my students won't hear this podcast, but I have already finished, you know, all the topics I have to give to one of my groups, all of them.
All right.
And now, from now on, I'm just giving whatever the fuck I want to give them.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, now it's all the fun. I already finished, you know, what I have to give.
Right.
Now it's what I want.
Now you can actually, like, you know.
And I started last week. I started last week and those are the classes that they are enjoying the most. So for me, for me it's like, come on, this is the classes I like to give, and I am just not even preparing them because I already know them. It's not in my, you know, on the subjects I have to give because I already finished them and so on. And I give them quite all right. Like, I finished completely. But for me, it's like, you could, like, even how the things are given, like, you can do your work with just the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And that's terrible. Like, we can give more than that.
Yeah. No, I think I mean we could get away with it, but again, I like to. I mean, I meticulously plan all of my lessons. I think carefully about which material. I try to be attentive to each of my students' individual needs.
Yes.
And if I cared less about the job, I wouldn't do all that. And I could probably get away with not doing it. I'd earn the same amount of money for less work.
Yes.
But it would be less satisfying.
Exactly. I have we are in this business also of giving classes online, which is quite all right, and we enjoy it. I am making my sausages, and it's a business, and I am profiting from it. And that's the thing. Like the job I enjoy the most is in the classroom with real people exchanging ideas.
Yeah.
I love the business. I really enjoy it. But the one that really fulfills, like I see it, like I like to have small hours of classes because I cannot be all the day giving classes in a university because I have already lived like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you come to the point when it is very tiring, very demanding, and you stop enjoying it.
Yeah.
So for me, I enjoy. Like I have two subjects, two classrooms. I give the best of myself in them, and then I commit myself for whatever other thing. Like I can produce, I can do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that has come from it as a way of enjoying life that I haven't known before. For me, it was always like you have to publish, you have to write, you have to give classes, you have to have masters, specialty, then PhD, then whatnot. And I already achieved all of that, and I was like already empty.
Mm-hmm.
And I am feeling I am getting more fulfilled with the two classrooms I have now than I know maybe many years I was just teaching without any rest. And that has come as a teaching for me. I have learned to enjoy those things, which doesn't come easy for sure.
It's not something that's very rare these days because I feel like society has sold us a scam. It's convinced us that, in order for us to be valuable, successful human beings, we have to dedicate the best years of our lives and the best hours of our days, basically from the morning until the late afternoon, to our jobs.
Yeah.
To jobs that do not satisfy us intellectually. They do not, intellectually or spiritually or emotionally. They're not physically demanding, so we're getting unhealthier both physically and mentally because of them. And and then it was like, oh, but don't worry, because eventually you'll be able to save enough money to retire.
Yeah.
And then you can enjoy the last 5 or 6
years that you live with bad health. And yeah.
Yes, but you use your healthy years to your youth and your health to do this job, and then you can retire when you're too old to be useful. Basically, and just go to a retirement home and then slowly shit yourself to death.
Exactly.
And that's kind of like, no, fuck that, man. I'm not doing that. And that's like, I'd rather live a life. I mean, ironically, this is the fucked up thing. I was stressed out about the fact that I didn't have enough money, and I wasn't materially wealthy enough. I was like, oh, I'm never going to be able to find a wife. No woman's ever going to want to be with me because I just live in a simple apartment and I don't own a car, and I don't really want a car. I hate cars, but I should probably own a car because people would find that impressive, and that's the definition of being a successful person. And then one day I just sort of gave up on all of that. I was like, I don't want any of this crap. I just want to live in a cabin in the woods. I just want to move to a cabin in the woods, and I just want to live a simple life. And as long as there's food in my house and all my amenities are paid for, I'm happy. And as soon as I made that decision and made the jump to move to the middle of nowhere, which is where we're currently filming this podcast, ironically, my financial situation improved a lot because I was cutting out a lot of unnecessary luxuries that weren't actually giving me any joy in life. Huh. And I learned to be, again, by adopting this sort of hobbit lifestyle, I learned to improve my finances, improve my mental health, improve my physical health, because I'm hiking every day, and I'm around nature. I live at high altitudes, and despite my my pipe smoking and high functioning alcoholism, every time I go to the doctor, they say, no, you're in great health.
Yeah, because you're hiking loads.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this has been great. So if you were to give an advice to a young guy who wants to to not be so frustrated with life, what would it be?
Oh, that's a really good question, because we have a crisis with young men right now.
Yes.
There's a huge crisis with young men who are just feeling kind of like rejected by a society, which I think being a man right now is a bit. I mean, don't get me wrong. Life is difficult for everyone, and life is difficult for women in ways that is very specific to, life is difficult for women in ways that men cannot comprehend. For example, life is,
I agree.
There are problems that women have to deal with on a daily basis that
We will never know.
we can practice empathy, but we will never really be able to fully know what it feels like, because we don't have to deal with we don't have to deal with that problem. Having to leave the house every day and share a planet where 49% of the people you're sharing it with could, if they wanted, kill you with their bare hands. I can't imagine having to live that way.
Or we'll never have the pressure of having a child or bearing it and still having to work. And
and there's
the demanding of energy.
Yeah.
And there are many things that we will never be able to know. But and I agree.
Yeah, there are. But then there are also, I mean, one of the ways in which I think society is possibly letting men down is we're currently living in a culture that if you're a man, will treat you with thinly veiled passive-aggressive disdain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think many men are struggling right now. Men are struggling right now. We're struggling with our mental health. And again, it's weird because there's a weird sort of paradox, a contradiction in our society where we're told that we need to be, in order for us to be less toxic, we need to be more open with our emotions, and we need to communicate more. And then when we try to do that and say, well, I'm struggling right now, the response is, no, you're not, you're privileged.
Yeah, and they slap you in the face.
And they tell you, like, your problems don't matter, shut the fuck up. So that's a huge, so I think men are struggling right now. They feel kind of like, I feel a lot of young men, I mean, I've had this where I just feel like kind of like, where you feel sort of quite despondent and quite hopeless. I suppose my biggest sense of advice would be, because it's kind of weird, because on the one hand it's about taking care of yourself, but also I kind of feel like in some ways probably the best thing you can do for yourself is finding something useful that you can do that benefits other people. Because I feel like the society, I think with the problem with the wellness industry and the idea about self-love and taking care of yourself and our obsession with sort of mental health and wellness is that it encourages you to sort of obsess about yourself. And the thing about depression is that depression is very narcissistic. It's a manifestation of narcissism. And I can say this as someone who's struggled with suicidal depression, is that it's a result of thinking about yourself too much and thinking about, what you deserve and how society ought to how society ought to reward you. And that was alleviated, just in my experience, when I began throwing myself into my work as an educator and doing something that had a direct impact on my community, and giving me. And I think that's my biggest is thinking about not thinking so much about what society can do for you, but what you can do for your community, I guess.
I have asked this question to many people,
Yeah.
and I think this is the best one I have received, and I am not joking.
Okay.
No. I find it even helpful to myself. Like, that is true. I have opened myself many times, but that thing, for men, it is more the thing that find yourself something that gets you useful.
Well, I mean, we've evolved to be useful.
Exactly.
We've evolved to be. We're a species that has evolved to do things, and right now we're living in a society where it feels like we're not really needed, and we're not doing anything. And I think again, it's the thing. What I said earlier is, people who struggle with depression. And I'm saying this from my own perspective. You're welcome to disagree with me. It might be different in your own. Maybe you're struggling with depression because you were. You were abused or whatever. I mean, I was abused as well in my youth. I was mistreated and all that stuff. But the reason why I ended up hating myself and why I ended up feeling depressed wasn't because people were cruel to me, although they had been, or because I'd been abused in my youth. It was because I didn't do anything. That was it. I wasn't doing anything. And that's why it's kind of like, it's the same thing. It's like when you have those days where you don't want to get out of bed and you just want to stay in your pajamas all day and doom scroll through Instagram and just binge watch TV and order junk food. The best thing you can do is, in my case, I forced myself to get a cold shower. You have to get a cold shower if you don't want to. I like cold showers.
Yeah, I know. It actually helps you. Forces you. Yeah. It gets you more alert, and it actually helps you to get less sick. So yeah.
But it doesn't have to be a cold shower. But I mean, have a shower, put on some actual people clothes.
Yeah, dress all right. Like
Don't
have
just-
respect for yourself.
Yeah, don't just like don't. I mean, like don't just be in your pajamas, like dress like a baby all day. Like get a shower, put on some clothes. Get out of the house, make your bed, get out of the house, do stuff. Just that's the best cure. For me, that's the best cure for procrastination. Because once you've had a shower and you put on your clothes, you're like, well, now I've put myself in my productivity costume. So
to embrace the role,
to force yourself to just to do anything. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to like, it's not about making. And it's also one thing I want to strive is that it's not about making money. Basically, it's not about. I don't care about money. And I don't think people shouldn't really care about money as long as you've got enough to live comfortably and in dignity and comfort, then you have enough money, basically. Even if you don't have enough money to maybe travel to to go traveling all year round, as long as you're able to live in dignity and comfort and be able to afford the occasional luxury, you're richer
than most than 1,600 years of humanity. Yeah.
If you have a roof over your head and you have food in your fridge, you're richer than
our grandparents.
You're richer than people who are alive today.
Yeah.
Well, the majority of people who are alive today are living in other countries. So
yeah, I agree.
Learn to appreciate that. So it's not about what you end up doing in life, what you become passionate about, and what you spend your time doing. It doesn't have to make you money necessarily. It doesn't have to make you rich. But it should be something that brings you satisfaction, and if it also benefits other people, all the better, basically.
That is lovely.
Yeah, that would be my advice to people who find something useful that you can do that helps other people.
I think this is like the best way, just like to end our podcast, because this is great.
Yeah.
So like should be great, and I do appreciate your time. So, like next time when we do this, we'll have another topic. But I do appreciate this opening because I think it will be very helpful. I have seen many young guys struggling. For you to give this advice, because you have lived it, and to open like this and to, be so trustworthy and being so direct, I think you have, even to myself, like, I felt it to my bones. It was like, fuck me. This is great. Like, because I have most of my years always frustrated about family expectancies and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen that I am more depressed when I am not doing something that satisfies me.
Yeah.
Something useful, something that I do see that I do all right. But all of my problems, I forget them when I am in, for example, at a classroom, or when I am producing my sausages. So, for example, for us, many does have to do less with looking inside of us, but most in doing. We are more pragmatic. We are more into things.
That's how. We're more men. Yeah, I think I've heard. I can't remember. I think it might have been Jordan Peterson who said that.
Yeah.
Women in general tend to care more about people, and men tend to care more about things, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like you found a hobby, an interest, like in your case, making sausages. You found a hobby that requires skill that not everybody has. It's a creative hobby, but then it's also something that makes other people happy. Yeah. For example, and it's bringing, people enjoy that are enjoying something that you've created.
Exactly.
Yeah, we just did it just now.
We're full. Yeah.
I've got a shelf right now. Just from eating your chorizos, and they're really good. So that's exactly, and that's something that brings you immense satisfaction. Like I think I remember reading a statistic somewhere that people who work in charities, who volunteer their time in charities, have greater life satisfaction than the average person, even if they're earning below the average wage. So they're making fuck all money from what they're doing, but they're deriving an immense amount of satisfaction because they're helping their community and they're helping to solve a problem which in many cases our governments and politicians are failing to solve, which is things like, poverty and homelessness and, women who need crisis shelters and things like that.
Exactly.
So people who work in those industries, even though it can be quite harrowing, tend to have an overall better life satisfaction because on the one hand, I suppose, working that way gives you, I'm just speculating, but on the one hand, I think it gives you an incredible amount of perspective and makes you more appreciative of what you have, even if what you have is very humble. And it also, again, you're doing something that is beneficial to other people, and I think that's what makes people. I think with Ben in particular, doing things that helps our community is the best thing that we can possibly do. Even me, living in the middle of the woods, like I live in the woods, I avoid people.
Yeah, but you're doing something for your community.
But
you
I
give
still,
classes.
I still give classes.
You still make furniture. So
yeah.
So yeah, I think we can return just to finish with this.
There we go.
With this thing about Bilbo, that he was doing things for other people rather than hoarded gold. And
he didn't care about, it was, as Thorin's last words were to him, if more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. And I agree.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect ending.
Perfect ending.
Great. Great. I think it was lovely, mate.